A hidden truth laid beneath the surface of a man's seemingly ordinary life, allowing him to evade justice for nearly 40 years. A series of horrific crimes in 2 states remain unsolved for decades, leaving unanswered questions to the victims and their families. The man behind the shocking kidnappings and assaults were finally identified after decades after groundbreaking forensic techniques finally brought his dark secrets to light, ending a long and painful journey toward justice. On July 6, 1986, officers with the Phoenix Police Department responded to a report of a kidnapping near 10th Street and Coral Gables Drive in Phoenix, Arizona. The parents of the victim, shaken and distraught, told the officers that they had awoken that morning to find their home burglarized. To their horror, they also realized that their daughter was missing. A search ensued involving neighbors and law enforcement, creating a sense of urgency and dread that gripped the entire neighborhood. Thankfully, the missing child was discovered soon after the report, having been found by neighbors and safely returned home. The relief of the family was palpable, yet questions remained about the circumstances surrounding the incident. Despite the quick resolution in finding the child, the case left investigators puzzled. Extensive efforts to identify the perpetrator failed to produce any leads. Officers scoured the home for evidence, conducted interviews with neighbors, and followed up on every tip that came in. However, no suspects were identified, leaving the case unsolved. The Phoenix Police Department eventually reached a standstill, with no immediate way to connect the crime to a known offender. Years later, on October 28, 1992, a chillingly similar crime took place in Henderson, Texas. In this case, another little girl was kidnapped and assaulted in circumstances that mirrored the Phoenix incident. As with the previous case, law enforcement dedicated significant resources to solving the crime. Evidence collected at the scene was meticulously processed and entered into CODIS. Despite these efforts, no immediate match to a known individual was found, leaving investigators once again without a suspect. A breakthrough of sorts emerged when forensic analysis linked the DNA evidence from the Henderson case to that of the earlier Phoenix kidnapping. This connection confirmed that the same individual was responsible for both crimes. The DNA profile, though crucial, lacked a corresponding match in the system, leaving law enforcement frustrated by the limitations of the available technology and resources. Nearly 40 years after the crime, a significant breakthrough came in 2024 when Phoenix cold case detectives turned to investigative genetic genealogy. After meticulous work and exhaustive analysis, this advanced method yielded a promising lead that investigators pursued rigorously. Following months of intensive investigation, the suspect was identified as 61-year-old David Mundt. The culmination of decades of tireless efforts and the integration of modern forensic science finally led to the resolution of the long-standing mystery. Investigators from Phoenix and Texas collaborated closely, sharing information and resources to ensure that Mundt was held accountable for his crimes. In August 2024, Mundt was arrested in connection with the kidnapping and assault cases from Phoenix and Henderson. Once the legal process for extradition is completed, Mundt will be transported to Phoenix to face charges related to the 1986 kidnapping and assault. He is currently held on $1 million bail. Authorities in Texas and Arizona are working together to ensure he is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This arrest not only brings a sense of closure to the victims and their families, but also underscores the importance of persistence in cold case investigation. John Blaylock, a hard-working steelworker and devoted father's life, was cut short in his Griffith, Indiana apartment. His case remained unsolved for over 4 decades, until a groundbreaking advancement in DNA technology reignited the search for justice. The nightmarish crime baffled investigators for years, but the relentless pursuit finally uncovered the truth behind this decades-old mystery. John Blaylock, born in 1930, was deeply cherished by his parents and grew up embodying the values of hard work and dedication. By 1981, at the age of 51, he had become a devoted father and a respected steelworker in the manufacturing and construction industries. On the morning of November 3, 1981, John's co-workers grew concerned when he failed to show up for work, something highly unusual for the dependable steelworker. Acting on their worry, two of his colleagues went to his apartment in Griffith to check on him. What they found inside was a horrifying scene. John's body was discovered in his bedroom, naked from the waist down, and it was immediately clear he had met a violent end. He had been bludgeoned in the back of the head, with investigators later identifying a piece of pottery and possibly an alarm clock as the weapons used to deliver the fatal blows. Both items were found shattered near his body, further emphasizing the ferocity of the attack. The crime scene told a story of chaos and brutality. Blood was found spattered in several areas of the apartment, highlighting the struggle that had likely taken place. The investigators noted stains on a cabinet in the living room, a jacket over the couch, the bathroom sink, a green towel, and a china cabinet in the hallway. The most blood, however, was concentrated in John's bedroom, where his body was ultimately found. Each detail pointed to a violent confrontation, yet the motives behind the attack remained a mystery. One peculiar clue stood out amidst the wreckage: a broken watch on John's wrist. The watch had stopped at approximately 2:15 a.m. on November 1, 1981, offering a possible timestamp for when the fatal assault had occurred. The watch became a focal point for the investigators, as it suggested a timeline for the crime and raised questions about what might have transpired in the early hours of that Sunday morning. This small but significant detail added to the eerie nature of the case, hinting at the calculated and violent nature of the act. As the investigation into John's demise unfolded, his sons provided police with critical information. They revealed that their father was a regular at a local bar called John's Place. A bartender from the establishment told the investigators that she had seen John there on the fateful night. She mentioned that he had been accompanied by a younger man that she did not recognize. The man was described as a white male, approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall, with a medium build, straggly, dirty blonde hair, and dark eyes. Despite this lead, the lack of concrete evidence hindered the case's progress. With no suspect identified, John's case went unsolved, eventually becoming a cold case. The case remained dormant for decades until 2018, when Griffith Police Detective John Mowery Jr. decided to re-examine it. This decision was deeply personal, as Detective Mowery's father had worked on the original investigation. While reviewing the crime scene photos, Detective Mowery noted inconsistencies that suggested John's movements after sustaining the fatal head wound were unlikely. This observation prompted him to revisit the forensic evidence, focusing on the blood swabs collected from the bathroom sink and other areas in the apartment. The blood samples were sent to the Indiana State Police Lab for DNA testing, but no matches were found in the National Criminal Database. Without a suspect already in the system, the investigation seemed to hit another end. Determined to push forward, Mowery sent the DNA samples to Parabon Nanolabs. Using databases from companies like 23andMe and Ancestry, Parabon searched for familial DNA matches that could lead to the perpetrator. In October 2022, Parabon made a breakthrough. They identified matches to 3 members of the same family. The investigators began ruling out potential suspects using additional evidence. A hair sample excluded one family member, while a cigarette butt collected from a traffic stop ruled out another. This process left only one individual, Gregory Thurston, who had been living in Eugene, Oregon since at least 2000. Thurston had prior interactions with the police in 2000 and 2013 related to a 1994 battery warrant in Indiana. However, both times, Indiana authorities declined to extradite him due to the distance involved. On October 24, 2024, Eugene police, acting on behalf of Indiana detectives, approached Thurston. Believing the visit was related to his old warrant, Thurston voluntarily cooperated. He was promptly arrested and charged with taking the life of John Blaylock. Investigators confirmed that Thurston matched the description provided by witnesses at John's place in 1981. At the time of the slaying, Thurston was between 20 and 23 years old, aligning with the bartender's account of the man seen with John on the night of November 1st. After 43 years, John's case was finally solved, bringing long-awaited closure to his family and community. The dedication of Detective Mowry Jr., combined with advancements in DNA technology, proved instrumental in identifying the suspect. Gregory Thurston is currently in custody at the Lake County Jail, awaiting trial for the crime that haunted Griffith, Indiana, for more than 4 decades. Dark secrets laid hidden behind the unsolved case of Mary Kathleen Schlais, a talented artist whose life was tragically cut short on a February day in 1974. A violent encounter with a man she barely knew left an enduring mystery for nearly 5 decades. Her untimely demise while hitchhiking to fulfill her artistic aspirations were finally solved after decades due to groundbreaking forensic advancements that finally uncovered the truth. Mary Kathleen Schlais was born on November 4, 1948, in Minneapolis, Hennepin County, Minnesota, to Arnold Benjamin Schlais and Louise Catherine Larson Schlais. As she grew up, she exhibited a vibrant personality and immense creativity. Her talents led her to pursue higher education at the University of Minnesota, where she graduated with distinction. A gifted artist and a skilled equestrian, Mary's life seemed promising and full of potential, admired by those who knew her for her artistic achievements and kind-hearted nature. On February 15, 1974, Mary's life took a tragic and unforeseen turn. At just 25 years old, she was found deceased near an intersection in the township of Spring Brook, Wisconsin. The discovery shocked her family and friends as they struggled to comprehend how her life could have been cut so short. Her demise was quickly ruled a slaying, a grim revelation that only deepened the heartbreak of those closest to her. The initial investigation revealed that Mary had been hitchhiking to an art show in Chicago on the day. This detail offered a narrow but significant lead in understanding the events leading to her untimely demise. However, progress in solving the case was hindered by the lack of witnesses or substantial evidence. Despite efforts by law enforcement, the case quickly grew cold. For decades, detectives from multiple law enforcement agencies worked tirelessly to uncover the truth behind Mary's demise. They pursued numerous leads and tips, hoping to find a breakthrough in the case. Interviews were conducted with individuals who might have known something about the events surrounding her case. Despite these efforts, no viable suspects were ever identified. The lack of substantial evidence meant that the case remained stagnant, and justice for Mary seemed increasingly out of reach. Over the years, her case continued to draw attention from those determined to find answers. Law enforcement revisited the evidence periodically, employing new techniques as forensic technology advanced. Despite their best efforts, no breakthroughs were made until recent advancements in genetic genealogy provided a new avenue for investigation. Determined to seek justice, the Dunn County Sheriff's Office partnered with a team of genetic genealogists at Ramapo College in New Jersey. This collaboration focused on analyzing DNA evidence collected at the crime scene, including a critical piece of evidence, a hat left behind near Mary's body. In November 2024, the genetic analysis led investigators to an astonishing revelation. Using state-of-the-art forensic techniques, the team identified a suspect in the decades-old case, 84-year-old John Keith Miller. The breakthrough came when investigators uncovered a hair on the hat that had been left at the crime scene. DNA extracted from the hair matched Miller, conclusively tying him to the slaying. The hat, later confirmed to belong to Miller, became a pivotal piece of evidence in solving the mystery of Mary's tragic demise. Armed with this new evidence, the authorities tracked down Miller at his apartment in Owatonna, Minnesota. After years of uncertainty and unanswered questions, investigators finally had the opportunity to confront the man responsible for Mary's demise. During their interview with Miller, he confirmed his involvement in the 1974 slaying. His admission marked a crucial turning point in a case that had remained unsolved for nearly 5 decades. During his interview with authorities, Miller provided chilling details about the events leading up to Mary's end. According to the criminal complaint, Miller admitted to picking up the young hitchhiker as she made her way to an art show in Chicago. He then made unwanted advances, asking Mary for sexual contact. When she refused, his behavior escalated violently. In a moment of rage, he grabbed a knife from inside the car and fatally stabbed her in the back. The brutality of the attack left Mary with multiple stab wounds. Despite Miller's confession, a crucial piece of evidence, the weapon, has yet to be recovered. The absence of the weapon adds another layer of complexity to the case. Though Miller's admission and the DNA evidence have provided law enforcement with enough to pursue charges against him, Miller faces a first-degree slaying charge for his role in the 1974 slaying of Mary Schlais. The suspect is currently being held in custody in Steele County, Minnesota, as legal proceedings begin. The authorities have taken steps to ensure his extradition to Dunn County, Wisconsin, where the crime was committed and where he will stand trial. For the investigators who tirelessly worked this case, Miller's arrest represents the culmination of years of dedication and perseverance. As Miller awaits extradition, Mary's family and the community that mourned her loss are one step closer to seeing justice served. Mary's family planned to hold their own press conference in the future, but they wanted to thank law enforcement for all their work. Hidden truths laid buried in the tragic story of Nancy Anderson, a bright and adventurous 19-year-old whose promising life came to a violent end in the paradise of Waikiki, Hawaii. A senseless slaying remained shrouded in silence for nearly 5 decades. The relentless investigation that spanned generations led to the groundbreaking discovery that reignited hope for justice in a case long thought to be lost to time. Nancy Anderson was born in 1953 in Bay City, Michigan, in the heart of a large family. As one of 10 siblings, her childhood was filled with the hustle and bustle of family life. Her father, Merle Anderson, worked at Dow Chemical to support their family until tragedy struck when he passed away in a workplace accident. This loss left an indelible mark on Nancy's family, but also shaped her determination to carve out her own path in life. Nancy attended Bangor John Glenn High School. She graduated in 1971, eager to explore the world beyond her hometown. With dreams of adventure and a strong desire to see new places, Nancy set her sights on Waikiki. Drawn to the allure of its beautiful landscapes and vibrant culture, she planned to spend time on the islands before pursuing her college education. To support herself in this new environment, Nancy took a job at a McDonald's. On January 7, 1972, Nancy's dreams of building a new life in Hawaii came to a sudden and tragic end. Just 2 months after moving to the picturesque island of Oahu, her life was violently taken. That afternoon, her roommate, 18-year-old Jody Spooner, woke from a nap to a horrifying scene that would forever alter both their lives. Nancy, only 19, was found stabbed to her end in the small apartment they shared. The events leading up to Nancy's demise began earlier that day, when 2 salesmen arrived at the apartment to demonstrate silverware. Nancy, always polite and accommodating, allowed them inside, even as her roommate, Jody, joined the demonstration when she returned home around 2:30 p.m. After the presentation, neither Nancy nor Jody made a purchase, and the salesman left. Jody, feeling tired, went to her room to nap, leaving Nancy alone in the apartment. The peaceful afternoon, however, would soon take a sinister turn. Jody awoke around 5 p.m. to an eerie and unsettling scene. She noticed water running in Nancy's bathroom, which struck her as odd since she believed Nancy had already left for her shift at McDonald's. When she went to check, the grim reality became apparent. Nancy's lifeless body was discovered in the bathroom, riddled with multiple stab wounds to her neck, chest, stomach, back, and sides. Her injuries also included defensive wounds, indicating that she had fought desperately against her attacker. When the authorities arrived, the investigation began in earnest. The crime scene was meticulously examined, yielding a significant amount of evidence. Bloody towels were recovered, and numerous fingerprints were lifted from the apartment. The sheer violence of the attack and the presence of defensive wounds painted a harrowing picture of Nancy's final moments. The salesmen who visited earlier that day were naturally among the first to be questioned. However, initial interviews yielded no concrete leads, leaving investigators struggling to connect the dots. The fingerprints and physical evidence provided some hope for future breakthroughs, but in the immediate aftermath, no arrests were made. When the police interviewed the roommate, Jody, about the events of the fateful day, she recalled hearing a strange noise around 4:15 p.m. while she was napping. Initially, she thought little of it since no further sounds followed. However, this detail would later take on a chilling significance as investigators worked to piece together the timeline of this case. The immediate suspects were the two silverware salesmen, Parker Graham and Jeffrey Allward, who had visited the apartment earlier that day. Both men cooperated fully with the investigation, providing fingerprints and taking polygraph tests, which cleared them of suspicion. The autopsy revealed the horrifying extent of Nancy's injuries. She had been stabbed a total of 60 times, resulting in 63 wounds, as 3 of the knife thrusts created exit wounds. The sheer brutality of the attack underscored the ferocity and intent of the perpetrator. Forensic experts determined that the weapon was likely a knife, with a blade approximately 10 millimeters wide and 60 millimeters long. Nancy went home for Christmas the previous year. Her sister Betty said later, "She acted a little strange. She thought something was going to happen to her. I think Nancy was afraid of something or someone." For decades, Nancy Anderson's case remained unsolved, a dark mystery frozen in time. Advances in forensic science offered some hope as the years passed, but the case lingered in the shadows, with no clear resolution. The investigators who had worked so diligently on the case retired, and new detectives inherited the cold file, determined to find answers. After nearly 50 years of silence, a breakthrough finally emerged in the form of advanced DNA technology. Parabon Nanolabs stepped in to assist with the case. Using cutting-edge techniques, they analyzed DNA evidence collected from the crime scene decades earlier. This approach had proven successful in solving other cold cases, offering a renewed sense of hope that justice for Nancy might finally be within reach. In 2021, nearly 5 decades after Nancy's life was taken, a significant breakthrough emerged in the cold case. Investigators obtained a DNA sample from the son of a retired Nevada prosecutor. The sample revealed a familial match to DNA found on a bloody towel at the crime scene. This pivotal discovery led law enforcement to Tudor Chirila, a 77-year-old attorney living in Reno, Nevada. Chirila's background added another layer of intrigue to the investigation. In the 1970s, he had lived in Honolulu, where he worked as a graduate assistant at the University of Hawaii. The university was located in close proximity to Nancy's Waikiki apartment, situating him near the crime scene. His later career was just as notable, as he had served as a deputy attorney general of Nevada and even ran for a position on the state Supreme Court. Additionally, he worked for the infamous Mustang Ranch brothel, further cementing his complex and controversial history. The breakthrough came when police were able to secure Chirila's DNA through his son, who resides in California. The familial match pointed directly to Chirila, finally giving them a tangible suspect after years of unanswered questions. With this evidence in hand, the authorities obtained a warrant to collect Chirila's DNA to confirm the match conclusively. Following the issuance of the warrant, Chirila was arrested in Reno on September 13, 2022, and charged with second-degree slaying. This development marked a seismic shift in the case, as the man who had evaded suspicion for nearly 50 years was finally brought under scrutiny. After his arrest, Chirila was extradited to Hawaii to stand trial for the crime. However, Chirila's legal team mounted a challenge to the extradition process. In December 2023, Kurila contested his transfer to Hawaii, arguing that his constitutional rights had been violated. Specifically, he claimed that the legal procedures surrounding his arrest and extradition were flawed, and that the case against him had been built on unconstitutional grounds. This legal battle over his extradition delayed the progress of the trial, and then, on December 25, 2023, he passed away in a hospital after refusing to eat, drink, or take medications for 2 days. The autopsy report showed sepsis caused by a urinary tract infection is what ended his life, but there were other contributing factors: tongue cancer, diabetes, a heart condition, and kidney stones. Nancy's brother Jack said, "Poetic justice. He spent the last year and a half of his life here behind bars, so I was at peace with that." Jack recently wrote a book about his sister's slaying and the long wait for answers called The Brittle Riddle, which is available in bookstores and on Amazon. He does not make any money off the sales. Rather, all the proceeds go to DNAjustice.org. The breakthrough DNA evidence and subsequent investigation finally revealed the truth behind Nancy's tragic demise, and in 2024, it was announced that the case is solved. Though Kurila was never convicted, Nancy's siblings see his demise in custody as vindication. Carol said, "If we do nothing else in our lives, I think I can say, Nancy, we did this for you. There has been justice for you."